Hello everyone. So for my project we are doing a history of prostitution in the United States. Prostitution is a practice as old as time. Its nickname is it is one of the oldest jobs. Many societies have had different acceptances of the practice, as well as intolerances and punishments for it. The United States is no different than any other past society. The United States has a long history of the practice, and different states have different experiences with it. Um, in the 19th century in the United States, westward expansion was a key um, factor in prostitution, with many people leaving the East Coast and settling out west as a result of many factors, the California Gold Rush, in addition to uh, westward expansion following the Civil War. Um, with further expansion out west, more rowdy and unlawful behavior was to follow. In the Western territories in the U.S., brothels had become a business and more common than they were back east. Um, uh, with less control, people felt more free to do as they pleased. So, a little bit about prostitution in the Wild West. So, archaeological discoveries have given historians a view of what prostitutes um, were like during this time in the Wild West in the late 1800s. Um, the reason for their findings was in archaeological digs out in in the West. They were able to find items that did not belong to men. The majority of people who went out west were male, but they found beauty products and grooming items that only women would carry, thus showing that brothels were very popular for men to frequent. Um, so men were not the only people who did come out west from the east. It was more popular, um, but not exclusively male. Women came out west from the east for the job. Um, White women from the east were successful in the business. They were able to basically become hustlers, with lack of a better term, um, by by having their own brothel businesses that would bring in a large amount of cash um, and success for women who may not have had any other type of job opportunities out west. However, the negative side to this was there was an exploitation of Chinese women who were brought there against their will and were forced into the practice and paid little to nothing, what we would what would commonly be referred to today as human trafficking. So, as the West slowly began to become tamed, uh, prostitution did not go anywhere. Um, by 1910, however, laws were passed and regulations were passed to make sure that the practice was limited. Um, by 1910, the passage of the Mann Act banned the interstate travel of women for the practice. By 1950, nearly all U.S. states had banned the practice altogether, um, and um, this was because it was seen as immoral and debaucherous by most U.S. states. Um, Now, even with the passage of laws that outlawed it, the practice itself did not go away. It simply went into the illegal underground. And by the 1930s, with the Great Depression causing a lot of financial burden to many people, both male and female, a lot of women resorted to the practice as a means of income. As we've said, it's the oldest profession. It's the oldest profession in civilization. And in many larger cities, maybe back east, um, the practice led to organized crime controlling the practice. So, following the Second World War, prostitution became illegal um, in almost all U.S. states, but remained tolerable in some major U.S. cities. By the 1950s, even most of those cities in the U.S. banned the practice because it drew kind of a rougher crowd, and oftentimes other crimes such as robberies, burglaries, assaults would follow, and brothels just became a place for trouble, thus being a reason why those practices became banned. Um, so, in the later half of by the later half of the 20th century and following into today, the only state that still has any legal allowance for prostitution is the state of Nevada. Um, the state has a very libertarian mindset, and it always has since its founding. Um, it was the first state to have a no-fault divorce, and it's had legalized gambling and now legalized prostitution. The state had views uh, that allowed the practice. Um, However, since with negative publicity, many lawmakers in the states decided to limit it um, to only certain counties, which in major metropolitan areas it is still the practice became outlawed, but is still legal in certain rural counties. And that is the history of prostitution in the United States. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.